Breaking, Triple H just pulled off the greatest signing in WWE history. Jon Moxley is back in AEW is in absolute chaos. I am absolutely losing my mind right now because what Triple H and WWE just did is the most shocking, unprecedented, and game-changing move in professional wrestling history. Jon Moxley, the man who left WWE in 2019 swearing he would never return, the man who became the face of all elite wrestling, the man who spent years criticizing WWE's creative direction and Vince McMahon's leadership, has just signed with WWE and is coming back under Triple H's regime. And I am furious because this proves that everything Moxley said about creative freedom and artistic integrity was complete bull, and when WWE backed up the money truck and offered him the right opportunity, Moxley sold out everything he claimed to believe in. And here's what's making me absolutely enraged. AEW fans spent 5 years defending Jon Moxley as the symbol of what wrestling could be outside of WWE's corporate machine. They held him up as proof that you could be successful, creatively fulfilled, and financially secure without compromising your values by working for WWE. And now Moxley has proven that all of that was a lie. He's going back to the exact same company he trashed, the exact same system he claimed was broken, because Triple H dangled enough money and promised him enough creative control. This is the biggest betrayal in wrestling history, and I'm livid that Moxley gets to just walk back into WWE like he never spent years insulting the company. But I need to know from you right now, are you excited that Jon Moxley is returning to WWE, or are you disgusted that he's betraying everything he stood for in AEW? Do you think Triple H offering creative freedom makes this return justified, or is Moxley just a hypocrite who sold out for money? Should AEW fans feel betrayed by Moxley, or should they be happy he's getting another opportunity? Tell me right now in the comments, because what I'm about to reveal about the mystery teasers WWE posted, the insane contract details, the backstage negotiations that made this possible, and what this means for both WWE and AEW's futures is going to completely blow your mind. Let me take you back to where this insane story began, because the way WWE teased Jon Moxley's return was perfect and had the wrestling world in complete chaos. 2 weeks ago, WWE's social media accounts posted a cryptic video with no explanation. The video was completely black except for audio, the sound of a motorcycle engine revving, footsteps on gravel, and a door opening. Then a voice, obscured and distorted, said, "I'm done running. It's time to come home." The wrestling world exploded trying to figure out who this was. The motorcycle audio made people think of American Badass Undertaker. The "come home" line suggested a returning star, but WWE gave no additional context. Quick question, when you first saw the teaser, who did you think it was? Tell me your initial reaction in the comments. 3 days later, WWE posted another teaser. This one showed a shadowy figure in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. The figure was wearing a leather jacket and had shoulder-length dark hair. Still no clear face reveal, but the body type and hair were distinctive. Wrestling fans started analyzing every frame. Some thought it was CM Punk returning to WWE. Others thought it might be Kenny Omega, whose AEW contract was rumored to be expiring. Some even thought it could be a returning Dean Ambrose, not realizing that Dean Ambrose and Jon Moxley are the same person. But the most observant fans noticed something crucial in the second teaser. The figure had a specific tattoo visible on their forearm that matched Jon Moxley's tattoos exactly. That's when the speculation really went into overdrive. The wrestling media started reporting that WWE had been in secret negotiations with a major AEW star. Reporters were scrambling to confirm whether Jon Moxley's AEW contract was actually expiring or if he'd found a way out of it early. AEW tried to maintain silence, which only fueled speculation. If Moxley wasn't going anywhere, why wouldn't AEW or Moxley himself just say so? Last night on WWE Raw, everything came to a head in the most spectacular way possible. The show was building toward the main event when suddenly, the arena went dark. Complete blackout. The crowd started buzzing with anticipation because they knew something big was about to happen. Then that familiar music hit, Jon Moxley's entrance theme, but reimagined with WWE's production quality. The crowd absolutely erupted. People were standing, screaming, crying, completely losing their minds. And then Jon Moxley walked out through the entrance, looking like an absolute star. He was wearing a leather jacket, jeans, and his signature confident swagger. But there was something different about him. He looked happy in a way we hadn't seen from him in years. Moxley walked down to the ring slowly, soaking in the reaction from the WWE universe. He grabbed a microphone and the crowd was chanting "Welcome back. Welcome back," so loud that Moxley had to wait several minutes before he could speak. When did you realize it was actually Jon Moxley returning? Tell me the exact moment you knew. Finally, Moxley spoke. "I bet you never thought you'd see me here again. Hell, I never thought I'd be here again. But things change. People change. And most importantly, WWE has changed." The crowd roared their approval. Moxley was acknowledging his complicated history with WWE while also signaling that this return was different from his original run. Moxley continued, "When I left WWE in 2019, I left because I was creatively frustrated. I left because I felt like my voice didn't matter. I left because I needed to prove to myself that I could be successful on my own terms. And you know what? I did that. I went to AEW. I became their world champion. I had incredible matches. I built a legacy that I'm proud of." This was crucial. Moxley was respecting his time in AEW rather than burying it, which showed maturity and prevented him from completely burning bridges. "But here's what I learned during my time away: WWE wasn't the problem. The leadership was the problem. The creative direction was the problem. And now, with Triple H running creative, with a completely different philosophy about how to treat talent and how to tell stories, this is a different company than the one I left." After Moxley's initial return promo, WWE released some details about his contract, and the terms are absolutely insane. According to multiple wrestling media reports, Jon Moxley signed a 3-year contract with WWE worth approximately $15 million. That's $5 million per year, making Moxley one of the highest paid wrestlers in WWE, comparable to Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, and other top stars. But the money isn't even the most interesting part of the contract. The creative control clauses are what really tell the story. Moxley has input, not final approval, but genuine input, into his character direction, feuds, and major storyline beats. This is extremely rare in WWE, where creative control is usually reserved for only the absolute biggest stars. Moxley cannot be forced to do comedy segments or angles that he feels don't fit his character. This is clearly a response to some of his frustrations during his original WWE run when he was forced into goofy segments that he felt undermined his character. Moxley has the right to work a limited independent schedule, meaning he can appear at select non-WWE events as long as they don't conflict with WWE programming or undermine WWE's brand. This is unprecedented for a top WWE star. Do you think these creative control clauses are fair, or is WWE giving Moxley too much power? Tell me your thoughts. Moxley's character can be more edgy and less PG than typical WWE content, allowing him to maintain some of the intensity and violence that defined his AEW work. These contract terms explain why Moxley was willing to return. This isn't the same WWE that frustrated him into leaving. This is a company that's willing to adapt to retain and attract top talent. The moment Jon Moxley appeared on WWE Raw, the wrestling world turned its attention to AEW and Tony Khan's response. And the fallout has been messy. Tony Khan initially tried to play it cool, posting on social media, "We wish Jon Moxley the best in his future endeavors. AEW is stronger than ever and we're excited about the incredible talent we have on our roster." But behind the scenes, according to multiple reports, Tony Khan was furious. Khan allegedly felt betrayed by Moxley, who had been one of AEW's founding stars and had presented himself as someone who truly believed in AEW's mission to provide an alternative to WWE. Other AEW wrestlers had mixed reactions. Some were supportive, understanding that Moxley had to do what was best for his career and his family. Others felt betrayed, viewing Moxley's return to WWE as validation that AEW is still viewed as WWE's minor league rather than a genuine equal. The AEW locker room is reportedly divided about how to respond. Some wrestlers are questioning whether they should also consider WWE offers when their contracts expire. Others are doubling down on their commitment to AEW and viewing Moxley's departure as addition by subtraction. If you were an AEW wrestler, would Moxley's move to WWE make you consider jumping ship? Be honest in the comments. AEW fans online have been even more divided. These fans feel completely betrayed by Moxley. They spent years defending him, buying his merchandise, supporting his matches, and holding him up as the symbol of what AEW represented. Now they feel used and lied to. These fans understand that wrestling is a business and Moxley had to make the best decision for himself and his family. If WWE is offering more money and creative freedom, why wouldn't Moxley take that deal? These fans believe Tony Khan and AEW knew Moxley was leaving and chose not to re-sign him because of backstage issues we don't know about. They think there's more to this story than is being publicly reported. The division among AEW fans shows just how impactful Moxley's departure is for that company. Let's talk about Triple H because he's the mastermind behind making this Jon Moxley return possible. Triple H has completely transformed WWE's creative direction since taking over from Vince McMahon. He's implemented several key changes: long-term storytelling instead of week-to-week chaos, respecting wrestlers' intelligence and giving them more creative input, allowing characters to be more real and less cartoonish, being willing to admit mistakes and course-correct rather than stubbornly sticking with bad ideas. These changes have made WWE significantly more appealing to wrestlers who previously viewed the company as creatively stifling. Triple H specifically reached out to Jon Moxley about 6 months ago, according to reports. The initial conversation was just exploratory. Triple H wanted to know if there was any scenario where Moxley would consider returning to WWE. What would Triple H have to offer you to convince you to return to a job you'd publicly quit and criticized? Tell me your price. Moxley was initially skeptical. He'd spent years criticizing WWE and building his brand as someone who didn't need WWE to be successful. Returning would require admitting that WWE under Triple H's leadership was different enough to justify giving the company another chance. But Triple H was persistent. He flew to meet Moxley in person multiple times. He showed Moxley the creative plans for WWE's future. He explained how the company's philosophy had changed. And most importantly, Triple H gave Moxley the contract terms that addressed every single one of Moxley's concerns from his previous WWE run. Triple H essentially said, "Tell me what would make you comfortable returning, and I'll make it happen." That level of commitment from WWE's chief content officer is what ultimately convinced Moxley to return. During his return promo, Jon Moxley laid out his immediate plans and established his first major feud back in WWE. Moxley said, "I'm not coming back to WWE to coast. I'm not coming back for a nostalgia run. I'm coming back to be WWE champion. And I don't care who's holding that title right now, I'm coming for it." This immediately established Moxley as a serious threat to whoever holds the WWE championship, creating instant main event credibility. But then things got personal. Seth Rollins' music hit and Seth came out to the ring to confront his former Shield brother. The tension between Moxley and Seth was palpable. These two men have incredible history, they were brothers in the Shield, they've had classics together, and they've been on completely different paths for the past 5 years. Seth grabbed a microphone. "Jon, I'm happy you're back. I really am. But let's be real, you left. You abandoned WWE. You abandoned me. And now you're coming back expecting to just walk into a WWE championship match? You're going to have to earn that opportunity. And I'm going to make sure that earning process is as painful as possible. Do you want to see Moxley versus Seth Rollins first, or would you prefer Moxley to feud with someone else? Tell me." This set up Moxley vs. Rollins as the first major program, which makes perfect sense. They have built-in history, mutual respect, and incredible chemistry. Their matches will be phenomenal. The promo segment ended with Moxley and Seth face-to-face, neither man backing down, setting up what will surely be an instant classic feud. The moment Jon Moxley returned to WWE, wrestling fans immediately started speculating about a Shield reunion. The Shield, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Jon Moxley, then Dean Ambrose, was one of the most successful and beloved factions in WWE history. A full reunion has been a dream of wrestling fans since the group originally broke up. But there are complications that make a Shield reunion unlikely in the near future. Roman Reigns is currently the heel tribal chief who rules through fear and manipulation. That character doesn't align with the brotherhood and loyalty that defined the Shield. Jon Moxley is returning as a badass loner who doesn't need anyone. Immediately putting him in a faction would undermine that character. Seth Rollins is positioned as Moxley's initial rival, so they need to work through that conflict before any reunion could happen. However, WWE is definitely keeping a Shield reunion in their back pocket for the future. It's the kind of moment that could main event WrestleMania and generate massive berates and ticket sales. The smart booking would be to let Moxley re-establish himself as an individual star in WWE, have compelling feuds with Seth and others, and then gradually build toward a Shield reunion that feels earned rather than rushed. Would you want to see a Shield reunion immediately, or should WWE wait and build to it properly? Give me your booking philosophy. Jon Moxley's return to WWE has massive implications for WWE's roster and championship pictures. Adding Moxley to a main event scene that already includes Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Gunther, and others creates incredible depth. WWE has multiple legitimate main event programs they can run simultaneously. Moxley's return opens the door for other AEW talent to consider WWE offers when their contracts expire. If one of AEW's biggest stars can return to WWE, anyone can. With top talent willing to come to WWE or return to WWE, the company doesn't need to sign everyone who becomes available. They can be strategic about which wrestlers fit their creative plans. Tony Khan and AEW need to make a statement signing or push to show that Moxley's departure doesn't signal a larger talent exodus. AEW's next few signings and storylines will be watched very closely. Let's talk about the business side of Jon Moxley's return because the financial implications are huge for both WWE and potentially for Moxley personally. WWE is paying Moxley approximately $5 million per year, but they expect to make that investment back through Jon Moxley merchandise is going to sell like crazy. Fans who loved his AEW work will buy his WWE merch. Fans who missed him from his original WWE run will buy his merchandise. WWE will make millions from Moxley merch. Moxley's presence on WWE shows will drive ticket sales. When WWE announces that Moxley will be appearing at a particular event, that event will sell more tickets than it would have without him. Moxley will draw viewers to Raw and SmackDown. Higher ratings mean more valuable television contracts in the future. Moxley and main event matches at premium live events will drive pay-per-view buys and Peacock subscriptions. When you factor in all of these revenue streams, WWE's $5 million per year investment in Moxley is likely to generate $15 to $20 million in additional revenue. That's an excellent return on investment. Would you pay to see Jon Moxley wrestle live? How much would you spend on tickets? Tell me. For Moxley personally, this return to WWE likely represents a significant pay increase compared to what he was making in AEW. While AEW pays their top stars well, WWE's revenue sources allow them to pay even better. Moxley is also getting merchandising terms that are more favorable than typical WWE contracts, meaning he'll earn a higher percentage of his merch sales. Now let's talk about the creative possibilities that Jon Moxley's return opens up, because this is where things get really exciting. These two men were founding members of AEW together. They helped build that company from the ground up. Now they're both in WWE and could tell the story of their divergent paths. Cody, who returned to WWE earlier, and Moxley, who stayed loyal to AEW longer. If CM Punk is still with WWE, his status is always complicated. A Moxley vs. Punk match would be explosive. Two men who left WWE disillusioned and found success elsewhere, now meeting in WWE under Triple H's regime. Shield brothers colliding with years of history and completely different character evolutions. This could main event WrestleMania. Moxley's brawling style versus Gunther's technical brutality would be phenomenal. This is the kind of match that could steal the show at any major event. Which dream match do you want to see first? Rank these in order of preference in the comments. Two of the most charismatic talkers in wrestling today. The promos alone would be worth the price of admission. WWE has years of potential programs for Jon Moxley, which justifies the 3-year contract length. One fascinating aspect of this return is how Jon Moxley's character has evolved and what version of Moxley we'll see in WWE. During his original WWE run as Dean Ambrose, Moxley was the lunatic fringe, unpredictable and chaotic, comedic at times. Part of the Shield Brotherhood during his AEW run, Moxley evolved into the King of Violence. Dark and serious, intensely violent. A loner who occasionally led factions. Now returning to WWE, Moxley seems to be presenting himself as a battle-tested veteran, confident in his abilities, respectful of his past but focused on his future. Someone who's experienced everything wrestling has to offer and is ready to conquer WWE on his own terms. This is the most mature version of Jon Moxley we've ever seen. He's not the lunatic or the violence king, he's a complete wrestler who can do everything at the highest level. WWE will likely allow Moxley to maintain his edge and intensity while toning down the extreme violence that wouldn't fit WWE's current product. This balance is possible under Triple H's creative direction in a way it wouldn't have been under Vince McMahon. After Jon Moxley's WWE return, wrestling fans immediately turned their attention to how AEW would respond, and Tony Khan is under enormous pressure to make a statement. Within 24 hours of Moxley's WWE appearance, reports emerged that AEW was in serious negotiations with several major free agents and potentially WWE contracted wrestlers who might be available. Rumors suggested AEW was interested in former WWE stars whose contracts might be expiring, Japanese wrestlers who could add star power, independent wrestlers who've proven themselves ready for a bigger stage. Tony Khan needs to make a splash signing or announcement to show that AEW isn't in panic mode after losing Moxley. If AEW appears weakened or scared, it could trigger a talent exodus as other wrestlers question whether AEW has a long-term future. The next few weeks are crucial for AEW's survival as a legitimate WWE alternative. What should AEW's response be? Who should they sign to make a statement? Tell me your ideas. The wrestling media has been covering Jon Moxley's WWE return non-stop, with opinion divided about what this means for the industry. Moxley's return shows that WWE under Triple H is genuinely different and appealing to talent who previously wouldn't consider working there. This is great for wrestling fans because we get dream matches we couldn't have gotten otherwise. Moxley's return proves that wrestlers should prioritize their own careers over company loyalty, and that's ultimately healthy for the industry. Moxley's return validates WWE's monopolistic position and makes it harder for alternative promotions like AEW to compete. This shows that creative freedom was always less important to Moxley than money, making all his previous statements seem hypocritical. AEW losing Moxley could trigger a talent exodus that destroys the company. This is just business. Moxley made the decision that was best for him and his family. No one should be criticized for taking a better opportunity. The diversity of opinion shows just how significant and complicated this story is. Jon Moxley's return to WWE needs to be understood in the context of wrestling history and other major returns. Hogan left WWE for WCW in 1994, then returned to WWE in 2002. Fans who initially felt betrayed eventually embraced Hogan's return. Moxley's situation is similar. Bret Hart had massive issues with WWE after the Montreal Screwjob. His eventual return and reconciliation showed that time and leadership changes can heal even the deepest wounds. Goldberg was WCW's biggest star and initially seemed like he'd never work for WWE, but money and the opportunity to work one more time brought him back. Moxley's return fits this historical pattern of wrestlers returning to WWE after swearing they never would. Time, money, and leadership changes make almost anything possible in wrestling. Looking beyond the immediate excitement, what are the long-term implications of Jon Moxley returning to WWE? If WWE can sign or re-sign any wrestler they want, including stars who built their brands elsewhere, WWE's position as the industry leader is basically unchallenged. AEW can't just be the place where ex-WWE stars go. They need to develop their own stars and their own identity that isn't defined in opposition to WWE. If top wrestlers can move between companies and get companies to compete for their services, wrestlers as a whole have more negotiating power. That's ultimately good for wrestlers' careers and compensation. Moxley's return, combined with other recent crossover activity, suggests that the wall between WWE and other promotions is becoming more porous. That could lead to interesting crossover content in the future. What do you think is the most important long-term implication of this return? Tell me in the comments. Ultimately, what makes Jon Moxley's return so compelling is how emotionally invested fans are in the story. People who loved Moxley's AEW run feel betrayed and sad that he's gone. People who missed Moxley in WWE are ecstatic that he's back. People who just love wrestling are excited to see what dream matches and storylines this return will create. This emotional investment is exactly what wrestling is supposed to generate. Whether you're happy, sad, angry, or excited about Moxley's return, you care. And that caring is what makes wrestling special. Jon Moxley returning to WWE is one of the biggest and most consequential stories in wrestling this year. It represents the culmination of Triple H's transformation of WWE into a company that top talent wants to work for. It represents a major blow to AEW's credibility and stability. It creates incredible creative possibilities for WWE programming, and it forces us all to reconsider what we think we know about loyalty, business, and what makes wrestlers happy. Whether you think Moxley is a sellout or a smart businessman, whether you're thrilled or disappointed, you can't deny that this return matters and will have ripple effects throughout wrestling for years to come. Welcome back, Jon Moxley. Let's see if Triple H's WWE lives up to the promises that convinced you to return. Is Jon Moxley a hypocrite for returning to WWE after criticizing the company, or is he just making a smart business decision? Will Moxley's return be remembered as a brilliant move or a betrayal of AEW? Should Triple H pursue other AEW stars now, or focus on developing WWE's existing roster? What's the first feud you want to see Moxley in? Do you think a Shield reunion will happen, and if so, when? Is this the beginning of the end for AEW, or can they recover from losing Moxley? What match are you most excited to see now that Moxley is back? Should AEW fans feel betrayed by Moxley, or should they wish him well? Do Moxley's creative control clauses set a dangerous precedent for WWE? Will you watch WWE more now that Moxley is back? Smash that like button if you're excited about Jon Moxley's WWE return. Subscribe to Wrestling Newsletter for continued coverage of this massive story. Turn notifications on so you don't miss our analysis of Moxley's first matches and feuds. This is Wrestling Newsletter, and the wrestling world will never be the same after Jon Moxley's shocking return to WWE.